What if the biggest challenges facing America aren't just out there in the world, but right here at home, woven into the very fabric of our government and the stories we've been told for decades?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today is August 23, 2025, and we're tearing into a stack of your sources that meticulously challenge conventional narratives. They're really pushing us to rethink, well, everything from the origins of foreign conflicts to the inner workings of our own government. We're seeing former President Trump, now back in office, already making some big, decisive moves. Just last month, January 23, 2025, he ordered plans drafted to release previously redacted assassination records, JFK, RFK, MLK Jr., promising a new era of transparency and truth that, frankly, many believe is long overdue.
That's right. And these bold moves are happening amidst a broader, ongoing reevaluation of U.S. policy across the board. Our sources vividly highlight a strong push to question established views on, well, everything. Foreign entanglements, for one.
Yeah.
You even had Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban praising Trump's foreign policy back in August 2023, calling him the man to save the world, seeing him as, a strong leader capable of stabilizing things. And then there are the domestic issues, the perceived deep state, even the official stories around COVID-19. It's all being questioned.
Exactly. And we also have headlines like Europe urging Trump to deploy jets in Romania to guard Ukraine. It shows this persistent reliance on U.S. military power, doesn't it?
It does.
Even while India is dramatically increasing purchases of Russian oil despite tariff threats, it just clearly illustrates the complex, sort of multipolar world Trump's administration is navigating now.
Yeah, it's a fascinating look at a new era of American policy guided by this America First approach. And of course, the critical perspectives that come with challenging the status quo like this.
So, today, our mission is to dive deep into the perceived motives and strategies of the Trump administration. We'll explore the criticisms of conventional explanations for the Ukraine conflict and get into the controversies around the deep state and COVID-19, all while extracting the most important and sometimes surprising insights from your sources. Okay, so let's unpack President Trump's approach to the Ukraine conflict first. Your sources suggest it's fundamentally driven by, well, a single powerful motive to end the Ukraine conflict quickly to avoid a nuclear World War III.
That's the core idea presented.
This isn't just about regional stability, then. It feels like a radical redefinition of national interest, prioritizing the biggest existential threat over, say, traditional alliance commitments.
And what's fascinating here is how this core motive translates into strategy, right? Sources point to his express readiness to meet Russian President Vladimir Putin immediately to negotiate. He believes, or the sources say he believes, that delaying these critical talks just leads to, well, an unacceptable increase in deaths on the battlefield.
Right.
And this approach, it stands in sharp contrast to a criticism leveled at the previous administration for apparently neglecting diplomacy.
Yeah.
Where opportunities for negotiation were allegedly sidelined, maybe contributing to a longer conflict.
So Trump's stance, as presented here, is that peace through strength means actively pursuing diplomatic solutions from a position of national resolve instead of letting conflicts just fester.
Exactly. And it's not just rhetoric, according to these sources. This perspective directly fuels his questioning of the huge financial commitment to foreign wars. He's consistently promoted an America First agenda that argues for a fundamental reallocation of resources, basically, focused back on domestic issues.
The argument being that American taxpayer dollars should first serve American citizens, address challenges here at home before being sent overseas.
A significant shift from, decades of global interventionism.
Yeah, a dramatic shift.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, Trump's America First focus highlights this deep-seated belief, outlined in your sources, that the U.S. is currently in a state of managed decline. A decline, he argues, that's significantly worsened by an, I'm quoting here, hemorrhaging taxpayer dollars toward a foreign war while things at home suffer.
And there's that striking example, right? His claim in January 2025 that the U.S. has already committed $200 billion more to Ukraine than the entire EU combined.
Leading him to ask, what are we, stupid?
It's not just a financial critique, then. It's a direct challenge to what he sees as imbalances within these alliances.
Absolutely. And that challenge extends far beyond just direct aid. He's also strongly suggested that NATO members in the EU should drastically increase their defense spending, up to 5% of GDP.
Wow, that's a massive leap from the current 2% goal.
It is. And this demand, as outlined, seems to serve multiple purposes. One, ensure allies carry their fair share of the defense burden. And two, demonstrate their actual commitment to the alliance. Plus, he has consistently used tariffs as a potent negotiating tactic, applying economic pressure strategically to get what he sees as better trade deals for the U.S. He frequently criticizes the EU for its substantial trade surplus with America.
So this raises a really important question, doesn't it? What's the long-term impact of demanding more money from NATO allies and threatening tariffs on the EU?
Well, the sources suggest this strategy isn't just about dollars and cents. It's positioned as a direct, deliberate challenge to the existing global economic order, and maybe even the structure of international alliances forged after World War II.
It forces allied nations to fundamentally reevaluate their own defense spending and trade practices, potentially reshaping NATO and global trade.
That seems to be the implication. The insight here is a move away from, let's say, unconditional global leadership towards more transactional, quid pro quo approach to international partnerships.
Okay, let's shift focus now. From global reevaluation to internal reform. Let's delve into the administration's aggressive plans to tackle what it sees as systemic issues within the U.S. government itself. And here's where it gets really interesting on the domestic front, based on these sources. Trump aims to root out the evil within what he calls the deep state and government gangsters. Those are strong phrases.
Very strong. They convey an intense commitment to dismantling entrenched bureaucracy and perceived corruption.
Yeah.
And the sources define the deep state in this context as basically unelected officials, career bureaucrats, powerful institutions that allegedly work to undermine the policies of elected leaders.
And this goal involves concrete, sweeping plans, appointing specific people.
Yes, appointing individuals explicitly tasked to clean house in places like the Justice Department and the FBI. Pam Bondi nominated for Attorney General, John Ratcliffe for CIA Director, Kash Patel for FBI Director. Those are the names mentioned.
Kash Patel. Sources indicate he's supported by quite a few active FBI agents, despite Democratic opposition.
That's what the sources suggest, yes. It highlights a deep internal dynamic, maybe a struggle for direction within these agencies.
And then there's the transparency angle, particularly around historical controversies. January 23, 2025, his first day in office, he orders plans drafted to release all previously redacted records on the assassinations. JFK, RFK, MLK Jr.
Right. And Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who, interestingly, Trump nominated for HHS Secretary, noted this action was long overdue to restore trust in government. The implication being that withholding this info for so long has eroded public faith, fueled speculation.
So it's a direct challenge to the official narratives, the secrecy around these huge historical events.
Exactly. And beyond personnel changes, your sources detail this powerful new initiative, the Department of Government Efficiency.
DOGE.
Yeah. Launched by Trump alongside Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy.
And the stated goal is monumental. Cut government spending by an astonishing $1.9 trillion.
Wow.
And eliminate entire agencies through aggressive executive action.
What's the strategy? It focuses on dismantling what they see as stifling bureaucracy, ending remote work for federal employees, that's a big one, apparently for accountability and decentralizing power, making government more responsive, more efficient.
It sounds like a very aggressive, top-down approach to streamlining the whole federal apparatus.
It certainly seems that way based on the sources.
Okay, the sources also dive into the, let's say, politically charged environment around COVID-19, presenting claims that really challenge mainstream narratives.
They do. A House Oversight Subcommittee report from December 2, 2024, for instance, concluded the virus likely originated from a laboratory in Wuhan, China.
That's significant, but then the former CDC director, Robert Redfield, took it even further.
He did. He claimed the U.S. played a substantial role in intentionally engineering the virus as part of a biodefense program.
Intentionally engineering. That's a truly heavy claim, implying deliberate, potentially dangerous involvement.
It is. And there are even stronger claims in these sources about coordinated censorship efforts.
Censorship? By who?
Allegedly orchestrated by the U.S. government and various media outlets, aiming to actively silence dissenting opinions on COVID policies and origins. Critical viewpoints.
And Trump himself weighed in on this.
He did. Back in August 2023, he asserted that the reemergence of COVID-19 was, in his view, a ploy.
A ploy for what?
To rig the election through renewed lockdowns and censorship, reminiscent, he said, of the 2020 election cycle.
Wow. This all raises serious fundamental questions, then, about the information citizens receive, the integrity of public health guidance.
And ultimately, trust in core institutions. It really cuts deep.
Okay, let's turn back to Ukraine now, but with a profoundly different and critical lens presented in these sources. Traditional liberal international relations theory often simplifies the war's origins, right? Blaming it squarely on the pathological character of the Russian regime and its leader, President Vladimir Putin.
Yes, portraying him as an irrational expansionist, driven solely by a desire to conquer neighbors. That's a common explanation you hear.
But our sources offer a significant, detailed critique of that narrative.
They do. They argue that Russia's actions from 2014 up to 2022, including its persistent insistence on the Minsk Second Agreement.
That complex diplomatic framework.
Exactly. Aimed at decentralizing Ukraine, giving special status to eastern regions. The sources argue this suggests Russia's primary goal, at least initially, was keeping Ukraine firmly within its sphere of influence, not necessarily outright annexation of the whole country.
And the annexation of Crimea is presented as an exception.
An exception, yes, highlighted as having historical popular support for leaving Ukraine, driven by its strategic importance for Russia's Black Sea Fleet and its distinct Russian-speaking heritage.
This perspective also questions whether Putin genuinely fears democracy itself, as the traditional narrative suggests.
Right. Sources point out a critical pattern. Russia only invaded countries that had been promised NATO membership. Georgia in 2008, after its Rose Revolution. Ukraine in 2014 and 2022, after its Orange Revolution and Maidan uprisings.
But significantly, Russia did not invade other post-Soviet states that had internal democratic uprisings, these color revolutions, like Kyrgyzstan or Moldova.
Correct. That distinction strongly suggests, according to this view, a motivation rooted more in security concerns about NATO expansion than a general opposition to democratic ideals next door.
So this raises an important, really central question from the sources. What Putin likely fears most is Western-backed regime change on his borders rather than democracy itself.
That's the core argument presented. Your sources highlight the open involvement of the U.S. State Department, organizations like the National Endowment for Democracy, NED, in Ukrainian political events leading up to the conflicts.
NED, which openly states its mission, is supporting democratic institutions globally.
Which often includes funding civil society groups, pro-democracy movements. Moscow, according to these sources, likely interpreted that kind of involvement as direct attempts at regime change, viewing them as a profound threat to its core security interests and a violation of his perceived sphere of influence.
Okay, let's try to unpack this timeline of escalation, which the sources suggest reveals crucial missed opportunities. After President Biden took a distinctly more combative posture toward Russia in early 2021.
Yes.
Ukrainian President Zelensky openly asked, why is Ukraine still not in NATO? That was February 1st, 2021. Publicly pushing for membership.
And just weeks later, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba reiterated that urgent question in a prominent Atlantic Council article, amplifying the call for NATO integration.
So Russia's response, according to your sources, came swiftly and decisively.
It seems so. After Ukraine sanctioned the pro-Russian opposition leader, Viktor Medvedchuk, Russia announced large-scale military exercises on the Ukrainian border. February 2021, a clear signal of rising tensions.
And then later that year, December 2021, Russia issued those draft treaties.
Yes, containing explicit demands that Washington agree not to bring Ukraine into NATO and that NATO cease further eastward expansion into what Russia considered its vital security buffer zone.
And the White House response.
Sources unequivocally state the White House did not seriously consider meeting Moscow's demands. They chose instead to rebuff the proposals as unacceptable. So this brings us to a provocative question raised by these sources. Was the invasion an inevitable outcome of Russian aggression, or were there significant missed opportunities for de-escalation by the West?
The sources strongly suggest the latter, that by encroaching upon what Russia perceived as its core security interests, U.S. policy, particularly on NATO expansion and its refusal to engage seriously with Russia's security demands, contributed towards a Russian reaction.
A reaction that took its final and bloody form in February 2022.
Exactly. And the sources imply this could potentially have been averted if Russia's red lines had been acknowledged and addressed through serious diplomatic engagement.
It's definitely a perspective that challenges the simpler, maybe more one-sided narratives often presented about the war's origins. Okay, so this deep dive has really shown us how the current administration is working to reshape both domestic policy and America's role on the global stage, often by questioning long-held assumptions, confronting established narratives.
Definitely. We've seen how a commitment to an America First agenda, an aggressive challenging of the deep state, and this critical reevaluation of foreign policy and historical events can lead to surprising insights and potentially a very different path forward for the country.
Yeah, the sources we explored consistently highlight this theme of seeking transparency, efficiency, accountability, both at home and abroad.
Indeed. The consistent re-examination of narratives, from the effectiveness of foreign aid to the origins of COVID-19, the inner workings of government agencies, it underscores a powerful message presented in these documents.
So here's a final thought for you, our listeners. Considering the repeated claims of government gangsters, coordinated censorship, historical cover-ups detailed in our sources today, how much of what we think we know about the world might actually be designed to serve a specific agenda, rather than simply presenting an unvarnished truth?
It's certainly a thought worth deeply exploring as you navigate the complexities of information in our modern age.